And good morning.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Jinx. Happy September. Can you believe it's September already?
Yeah. Can you?
So,
right? Where has the summer gone? So I'm sitting here with my, I guess now fall cup of coffee, right? As we step into this.
Pumpkin spice is out.
Nah, I've been hearing so much negative, on the radio drive-in. Like everybody's like after pumpkin spice. They're trying to put a nail in it or something, So I'm not going to go there. I just, black coffee. That's good for me.
I just picked up Vietnamese coffee over the weekend, and so
Is that a thing? Is it good coffee? Is it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you go to a Vietnamese restaurant and get pho, then the Vietnamese coffee, it's like an iced coffee with condensed milk. I mean, it's full of sugar, but it's delicious.
Okay.
But I just get they grow coffee in Vietnam and has a unique flavor. And it's my version of pumpkin spice, I guess I'd say.
There you go.
But,
okay.
Well, all right, cool.
What's going on in your world, man?
Yeah, we're excited to be back for another episode here of Take a Knee. And a lot going on. It's been a busy summer of us getting all of our education in our online platform, because we don't have in-person seminars and workshops that we do. We've been building it out all online, but I can give you a preview of what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So, we've had this up for a long time, a way for people to come download our books, get our videos, but also, it's only me setting this up. So I can only do so much at once. And we've been learning a lot.
So you work and launch at the speed of your own skill. Is that what you're trying to say?
Right. And the way I work in like sprints. Like I'll get an idea of and just kind of have to learn all the systems and how to implement it over a period of a few months. But so that's what I've been doing the last few months, is sprinting to get our content in a more organized fashion, so people can come in here, and if they a lot of people, we've got over 650 members of this military retirement blueprint portal so far already.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
The idea here is, we don't give it all away for free. I mean, no cost to get in, and also no requirements of homework, to work with us. But this is when it comes to finances around military retirement, everything that has come up over the years that people have asked me through hundreds and hundreds of conversations I've had with, each time it's a new person stepping into their own situation around military retirement. So I heard a lot of the similar things over and over again. So, and obviously, people want to know about our solution, what the war chest strategy is, how does life insurance and annuities work and play into my overall, military benefits and financial plan. So that's our business, of course. But we, want to educate first and help people make those decisions. So if people are still trying to decide about the SBP, like I don't know, or I need to talk to my spouse, or we're confused about a few things, I've got a series of videos here to go through all that. If you're learning more about our products, we got various courses on that. So the idea is to browse around and use as you see fit. Download our books.
It's a one-stop shop for everybody, and your lead turning me here on the digital front. We've been engaged in Blue Water Digital, and we're going to funnel people from our digital platform right to this, because it just makes all the sense in the world to do that, right?
And that's, I wanted to make this, I mean, literally you inspired me to create this. And so I think your digital platform can complement this, because yours has the data and the connections and who to talk to, where this is the information, but this can also be the meeting spot. So, so we're going to set up, I'm going to do workshops live, where people can come do question and answers.
Yeah.
And I know we've been talking about doing networking groups, and that's just a Zoom call where we invite, military retirees. Hey, I want to learn how to network better. Like the real money's in the networking. So we thought this would be a good spot to introduce that. You don't have to be a member to join those Zoom meetings, but I've just put a temporary time here, but This will be down the road once I get everything else set up, but you want to have a way to invite people in to get comfortable getting on group Zoom calls, meeting a lot of people, hearing about, hey, what are you going through? Oh, here's a question I have. I didn't think about this. Oh, I know this guy. Oh, hey, let's have a call offline. It's just these. I've been doing these military, veteran focused Zoom calls. They're all called meetup groups or masterminds, whatever you call it, networking group. And a lot of people offer them. I recommend going to other ones. I just noticed that we've got, a unique audience of, senior officers and NCOs kind of looking about things. Yeah. If people find us, then usually they're thinking a little bit outside the box one way or the other anyways. Right. And so those are the kinds of the people that don't want to just, follow everything out of the transition briefing, hook, line, and sinker. This is where we can kind of talk about that stuff that isn't just the post on LinkedIn that says this is what you should or shouldn't do. It's like, no. This is all, we're in a whole new environment. Right. And so we need to be able to move quickly with those we can, know, like, and trust. And that's what we'd like to do here. So building this out, would love to, if people want to get, more involved. I've got a number of people that have kind of like you have, Steve Weeman and folks, working with you as either ambassadors or helping you coach. I've got a number of folks that have gotten licensed and want to get more involved in the finance industry. Like, hey, how do you make this a career potentially? So we've got a kind of a program, we call it affiliate or something, where we do some training on that. So
I love that you're growing and scaling this thing, right? And you're continuing to modernize it. You're bringing value, right? You've been in this long enough. In fact, even the short time, almost 4 years now that you and I have been tied at the hip, we do get a lot of those questions, right? We already know the questions we're going to get, right? In most instances. And so you lead turn that. Here's the answers to all your questions right here, right? And this is probably, like many of these, lead turn events and platforms like this, we're doing pretty well, Scott, to get the 95% answer out there, right? And the 5% uniqueness, we can deal with that on a one-on-one engagement, right? So,
yeah, exactly. I think you spend an hour going through either our book or our videos, or really I put together this master class. It's about 90 minutes once you get all the way through it. And I hit on all the main things that people ask me. They say, hey, Scott, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know. And, I either got to play catch up with my investing, or I haven't had a chance to pay attention to my finances and insurance and all this kind of stuff. And I don't got a lot of time to make a bunch of decisions.
Yeah. Like that's almost 100% of us, right? Right. In active duty, we put all this stuff on autopilot and it just goes for years. And, in our part of the world, right, individuals are stepping up into their career progression. What's next? What do I want to pursue? And it's usually in that venture that they go, oh my gosh, I've had this thing or this investment thing or this insurance thing, and I had totally forgotten that I was paying into this, right? It's this another voyage of discovery, right? And so it's a timely discussion, right? And all the information you put together, it just is very timely to have all of this available for your members and our members too, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Blue
Water. This was designed with the Blue Water member in mind, as the avatar, to think, who am I speaking to here? And so actually, last thing I'm going to be loading, I've got about 10 case study style webinars where we go through, all right, here's a colonel at, age 48, they did 28 years. Here's a, 06 with 30 years. And so we can show, or here's one I'm about to launch, strategies for VA disability. So you got maybe you got, 60, 70%, you got 20, 30K coming in tax-free. You don't really need it for a lifestyle. Right. What do you do with it to make it most efficient? That the war chest can be a great way to stash that kind of money away. So it's a good way to, add to the backup plan. The idea with the war chest is, at least financially, giving us that not emergency fund, but opportunity fund.
Sure.
Something where you don't have to wait for retirement to finally use it. Like the opportunity is when you take the uniform off, you're not having to follow orders anymore. Probably getting a job for the next, 5 to 10 years. But what might pop up that you're like, oh, it's an investment opportunity, or maybe I want to start a business or buy a franchise on this or do something on the side. Do I have am I in the financial position to make a move that may or may not buy me more time? Offer more, increase my talents, grow my treasure, whatever it might be. You want to feel confident, be able to deploy the resources you've saved.
Sure.
Your military pension, your VA disability, those are resources you've earned. And so our whole concept here with the war chest is to package that all up so that you can make more confident decisions without, worrying about whether the stock market's going to go up or down.
And I love the framework, right, of the discussion, the timeline, right? Most of our members, right, we are still, it's been a couple months since I looked at it, but we're not far off. We're still about that 86, 87%, Navy, and about 85% 05s, 06s, right? Mm-hmm. And that demographic, right, who walks through our door, they really gravitate towards, hey, I want to do something, but they can really easily wrap their mind around the framework, that 10-year time period. Hey, I want to look at 10 years, right? I'm probably, I don't know, somewhere between 53 to 57, somewhere in that window, 55 maybe. I could see myself, producing right out to, let's just put a stake in the ground. Most people gravitate towards that 65 figure, right? I can see myself still working, delivering results, raising the bar, in some capacity, right? Some, beyond that, but it's very easy to get yourself in a mental, headspace on a 10-year time period. And a lot of what you talk to them about is based on that 10-year timeline. Hey, in 10 years, we can go from here to there. This is what you can do in that time period. And I know you're absolutely happy to have conversations outside of that framework, but I think that framework really resonates with a lot of our members, right? Would you agree? I mean, I think they warm up to that.
Yeah, it's, what I like the way I think about what you and I do, whether it's this show or individually with people, is we're just trying to help people, answer questions quicker, or solve problems, or point them in the right direction with who they need to chat with.
Right.
And what I hear most often is, again, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not sure what I want to do when I grow up, but I could put in another good 10 years. Like I hear that as one of the most common things.
Right.
That's what I feel comfortable with with my family and everything. So that's understandable. And this
really frames that out, and you provide your members, right, and our members something tangible, right? Hey, this is what that time period could look like, right?
Yeah. So
looks good, man.
And so just threw this up. This is a graphic I threw together a while ago. Just some things to consider around timelines during military retirement, whether it's preparing for or even afterwards. So we don't necessarily have to speak to this directly. I just wanted to frame this a little bit. But Mike, I thought in the time we got left, you talk about common mistakes around prioritizing what needs to get done first, or if you got questions for me, or let's kind of quiz each other on what we see with our audiences on, what are people concerned about that maybe they don't need to be yet, or things we're just not thinking about, or not aware of that we should, get. Because a lot of times people are saying, hey, when should I start this? Do I start this at, I don't need to start this to month 20, month 12, then they just don't think about it at all. And it's like, I don't know if that's necessarily the way to think about it, because a lot of times people are entering this whole process at different stages in their own lives. So any set timeline of what you should or shouldn't do when, those are just guidelines. So I want to see what you're seeing
No,
from kind of,
and just for the listener out there, right? This is such a, Scott and I think recognize early on, right, that much of what we discuss and bring to the table, right, is of value to our members, right, our demographic, right, the demographic that we have in Blue Water, right, but for different reasons, right. I love how you are the source, right, and the modern approach, the mathematical approach to SBP, TSP, and all those financial insurance, issues that are out there. Now, I've shared this with you before. I can speak to Blue Water members on this from a personal aspect. In other words, hey, I went through the transition process, right? I went through this. I went through these legacy institutionalized programs. Here is what I did. If members want to have that conversation, but I very quickly in that discussion always segue to, hey, just because I navigated this space, right? I'm not the expert in this space, right? You've got years in this space, and I just prefer to. That's why I just love this relationship, right? You're a trusted resource, and we can just push people over there. But happy to share personally what we did. Again, kind of one of the benefits of Blue Water, right? Hey, we're all senior leaders or former senior leaders, right? Who have found success in uniform and have found success in various different, swim lanes, defense industry, government contracting, corporate America, whatever it happens to be. We're happy to share our insights, and that's really the credibility and the strength of the program. But when it comes to the expertise, I love that you're a trusted resource, Scott, and you take great care of the members that they're our members, right? It's kind of how we talk about it, right? So, but timeline, right? We have a saying, and you've heard me say this to our members. People will come to us. I'll say in our swim lane, right? I got to get a job. What does my next success look like? I don't know what I don't know. I'm not really sure what I want to do when I grow up. These kind of things, we've heard a lot of these over and over again. And what we tell our members, because people will ask us outright, hey, Mike, I want to come and do a cohort. When do I need to do that? Man, that's just such a loaded question, right? Because the answer, which is probably completely, unsatisfying, is it depends, right? It depends on what it is you want to pursue and where it is you want to go, right? And we call it the fenced yard scenario, right? Like if you look at DOD, whether you're Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, whatever it happens to be, Air Force, the center of the universe, that's DOD, right? And so that's the house that you're in. So if you want to pursue a government contracting role in support of the organization that you came from, it is likely, although not absolutely, but it is likely that you have a pretty good network established in that regard. You're right. You may have worked for some of these government contractors, while you wore the uniform and collaborated with them, right? So you may have a relationship there. That's still kind of in the fenced yard. But if you want to kind of go outside of that fenced yard to the bigger, larger defense industry, to the Lockheed Martins, Raytheon, Booz Allen's, Boeing's of the world, right? You still may have, although not absolutely, but you may have a pretty good network established. Perhaps you did work with some of those companies. But if you come to me and say, man, I just want to get into corporate America, right? You're stepping further outside of that fenced yard, right? Or I want to get into private equity or venture capital pursuits, or I've always wondered if my leadership skills translate into some environment way, way, way outside of defense. I'm probably going to tell you with some level of certainty that you're going to need to, spend some time building a networking bridge to get out that far, right? Does that make sense if you kind of look at it like a fenced yard scenario? So when people come to us and they say, hey, how when do I need to step into a cohort, Mike? How soon do I need to do this? And I go, well, it kind of depends. But in general, just a generality, what we typically tell people is, I will, flippantly throw out there, I said, hey, you can never start too early, but you can start too late, right? So there's no harm if you want to start wrapping your brain around this and stepping into this thing 2 years, 3 years in advance, right? I mean, I encourage people, if they've got that level of forethought, right, and foresight, to engage in this, spend a little bit of time thinking about it, and warm yourself up to it the closer you get. There is one certainty when we work in DoD, right, that everybody will leave eventually. I don't care who you are eventually, you are going to be, stepping into your career progression and working your way out. So to ignore it until you are literally days away, that's not the smartest thing either, right? But so, starting at a 2 or 3 year point is great. But on average, if we see members are stepping into a cohort, that 10 to 12 month, that 8, 9, 10, 11 month window, if you're getting serious about it and you're stepping into there, that's a pretty good time frame for you, right? As a last ditch. Anything inside of that, I'm going to tell you that you really run the risk of feeling rushed, right? And one of the fallacies most members come to us, Scott, is they think that they're going to have more time available the closer they get to, stepping out.
Okay.
And that is absolutely not true, because competing interests, your medical, your VA, SBP, TSP, all of these things are going to come out of the woodwork. You've got to get your DD 214 done. Oh my gosh, you're not going to have all the paperwork. You're going to have to go look for all this stuff. You're going to have to pull all this information. Now, all of a sudden, what should be this peaceful, or what you thought was going to be, this peaceful time period as you're stepping out, is now riddled with competition for a finite amount of time that you have. And now up goes anxiety, stress, because now you haven't even started thinking about what your next success is or what you want to do with your finances on the other side, right? So we really do think there's a benefit of starting, earlier. And as long as members are really kind of putting their shoulder into it, that 8 to 10 month, 11 month kind of window, that's a good place to start as kind of your, hey, this should be your last on-ramp, if you will. Anything inside of that, you really run the risk. And analytically speaking, we track our members. When do they get serious about pursuing their next success? And when do they receive an offer letter? You with me? So what is that time period? The national average is about 5 months, right? For people looking for new careers, transitions, right? I mean, that's about right, 5 months. What we see Blue Water members, as long as you are willing to step in that 8 to 11 month window and get serious about networking, figuring out what it is you want to do, go through our process, right? Engage with Blue Water members and devote some period of time to what your next success is going to look like, into designing, what Dave Wadelick would tell you, designing your career progression, right? If you put a little bit of thought into that, if you're doing it at the prescribed timeline, right, that 8 to 11 month period, we think you're going to spend a little bit better than the national average, 3.5 to 4.5 months. That's typically what it's going to take for you to find your next success. Man, every month you delay inside of that 8 month time period, we've almost got enough data that I could look you in the eye and say, for every month that you delay, you're adding about 6 to 7 days on your time to land. Right. So if you kind of looked at this, 5 to 7 days somewhere, that's another month to a month and a half, getting close to 2 months on top of a 3.5 month window, which kind of puts you back to a national average. Right. So we want to bring the network and have it readily available for members to plug into. But nonetheless, you got to lead turn that and get your brain around it. Right. So it's an interesting timing discussion, but I would kind of ask you, Do you think the same timeline kind of applies to individuals thinking about SBP, TSP, these kind of things, or sooner would you like to see them engage in that, or is later okay?
Well, unfortunately, with life insurance, it's just a matter of how healthy are you at this moment, that you apply and stuff. So, not everybody's ready to have that question answered. It's a personal thing. But I like to think about it from a bigger picture, because once you've done probably 10 years in the military, you're probably committing to do a career mentally, right? That's probably the standard
You're
that
kind of
we
over
see.
that hurdle. Yeah.
And so if we're just waiting until, well, I didn't get promoted, or I think it's finally ready for time for me to drop my papers. Like, we already knew one of those two situations is coming, and we're going to be leaving, like you said.
Yeah.
So, and then that puts us in the standard timeline. As you said, hey, if you start, average 8 to 12 months out, on average, you can get, in a decent gig within 3 to 4 months. And on average, you're going to get this, same salary and experience that you can expect. And what I see is the people that start earlier, not earlier as in, all right, I dropped my retirement paperwork earlier. It's like, no, I have a feeling, I'm thinking about this. Maybe it's still 7, 8 years out, but I got an inkling for something else. I'm going to be ready for it. Now that's when to start networking, because the networking can create the curiosity of what else is out there that might be outside of that, any sort of timeline where I'm on somebody else's agenda. When does the recruiter or the HR want to even start talking to a candidate? Now you're just in the waiting game, versus what we know is when they say, hey, I want this guy because he's a friend of so-and-so. And, that's what we can create. Not to mention the amount of connections and just industries or even ideas that you could have by starting earlier. And what I found is people who are doing that, kind of like Gary Redmond. We've talked to Gary here a number of times. He went out and did internships. He was getting online and networking groups well before he even dropped his papers. I'm not even sure if he has yet. I think he has.
It's got to be close. Yeah.
Right. So I just see when he's posted on LinkedIn, I see just the amount of different experiences he's had already before even getting out of the military, and the number of connections he's making is so that itself is part of his design. But when he actually gets into his 12-month window and doing his design, he's going to have he's going to have personal data points and his own connections to tie into the network as well. So I like that approach, because, well, let me finish to get back to your initial question, because people that start to tend to think earlier about the bigger picture of it, they're going to be asking around a little bit more, and somebody's going to mention, hey, do that SBP thing.
Right. That's what I want to talk about.
The sooner that you get qualified for a private option at your own health rating and stuff, when it comes to, at least that decision, now that's just off the table. You just don't have to worry about that at all. I mean, I get calls from people a month out from retirement. Hey, I got to make this decision. I'm freaking out because I don't know how to explain it to my spouse. And
well, it is. It's a stressful time. I remember going through that. Yeah.
And it just doesn't have to be that way, because if you're not going to like it and not going to want to do it anyways, and you're in the military, you're healthier than the average American, meaning why pay the same price as everybody else? So it should be a simple decision, for those who are healthy enough to qualify. If not, it is the ultimate backup plan. And that's what it's there for. And that's why it is great. All these military benefits are there for everyone to qualify, so they don't have to worry about it. But when they go away, like, why have that stress on the table if you're financially and medically viable to not even worry about it? So that's, the short answer when it comes to that version of it is
the timing.
Fine. Unfortunately, a lot of times people aren't going to find out about it until their retirement briefing. So, like to try to spread the word. Hey, if there's one thing you're going to look into, that there is kind of a timeline to it, because it is going to run out at some point. You can't make the SPP decision anymore. You do have a window between year 2 and 3. So if we were fine, yeah, so I kind of wrote this with the SBP thing in mind. Ideally, if anybody's going to hear about it early, it usually is around the 36 to 24 month mark. Like that's a great timeline to knock out the non-military retirement process stuff, all the VA, trying to get into the job hunt. Like you can take care of that earlier, but at retirement, you've got to make that SPP decision. Now, after retirement, there is a window to get out of SPP between year 2 and 3. So, but that, other than that, you're locked into it, but that's still relevant. So, different timelines.
So, I mean, once you take it, Scott, right? I mean, you're in it, right? I mean,
except for that window.
Between
year 2 and 3 after retirement. So the 24th to 36th month of retirement is your option to opt out of SPP.
See, for some reason, I'm probably misremembering this. I thought you could always get out of it, but you just couldn't get into it, right?
No.
So once you're in it, you're in it, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Yeah. And I do know that they did not long ago, they opened up a window for those individuals who did not take advantage of it. If you wanted to opt in, you could. But I remember I had a number of members reach out to us. They said, "Hey, Mike, they're opening up this window. I didn't take SBP. I'm thinking about this might be a good thing." Here was the caveat. You probably remember it was last year when they opened this up. You had to go back and buy into it, meaning they knew what date you got out. They knew what the investment accumulation would have looked like, and they said, "Yes, we will let you into SBP, but you got to write me a check for $48,000 to get back into it." As an example, depending on how long you've been out of it.
And that's a lesson of the timeline. Those individuals who didn't know about that decision prior to the retirement with enough time to get out of it. So the fact that they had declined SPP, but then were even considering getting back into it, means they didn't set up anything else on the side to protect them.
Scott, this is why I just love having you as a resource, right? I mean, it's and for members that are listening out there, I like to refer to it as it's a mathematical discussion. There's no emotion in this. It's ones or zeros. You can sit down. Here's how old you are, provided you can get this. It just looks like this. And you can very easily compare and contrast it to some of these legacy institutionalized programs like SBP. I think you and I would agree that's been around and it's founded on some pretty dated architecture, right? We won't get into the quality of what that looks like or anything here, but it comes out in the discussion, right? There are new, more modern, more flexible options for individuals, provided, to your point, hey, you're still healthy and you're doing these kind of things, right? It really makes it an exciting discussion as you look at these options that are available.
Well, the example you just mentioned is kind of a good lesson, an example. The fact that scenario, you would have had to buy in with $48,000 to get back into SBP.
Sure.
So that's the point is,
and that was predicated on somebody that could have got in at, I don't know, age 53, and now here it is, they're 59, or
exactly. Exactly.
So for the members, don't lock onto that number. There was some algorithm that was figured out at that point.
Right. That's just one of the. I had people call me up. They were in their 60s. They've been out of the military 20 years, and their buy-in was $150,000.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So that's the point, though. So whether it's 48, whatever the buy-in, that's just a lesson to say that's the amount of money that if you don't die, you're committing to that program without guaranteeing any positive outcome. The only positive outcome is that there's a survivor, meaning the retiree doesn't get anything.
Yeah, survivor benefit plan. It's all in the title, right?
Yeah. So if you time it right. And you can now protect that income and keep that money in your pocket at the same time if you don't die. Yeah. Get the money back. So that's the variables that you're comparing. As Mike said, it's a math decision, but there are understandable emotions around it. So we
Sure.
want to address that. But if we don't time it right, then the emotion and stress and doing the easy button is, usually what happens.
So maybe that 8 to 10 month timeline works well for members to engage with you on SBP, right?
Right. That's kind of an ideal. Like if they're just learning about it, went to the retirement briefing at the 12th month or a little bit around that. If you're gonna look at the SPP, if you don't want to take SPP, that actually should be one of the first things you knock out in all your time before you go to the VA disability. Because once you start going to VA disability,
presentation there, and there will be somebody that says, "Hey, here's your window of opportunity. If you say no, you have to have your spouse sign this form, blah, blah, blah. This is it, right?" And to your point, you're either in or out at that point, right? And
one of the big mistakes we see is focusing on VA disability early in their process, because you want to get the rating and get the extra income. And while you can always do that process, once something is on your medical records, and that doesn't necessarily have to be. So what happens is you go in for VA disability for your aches and pains that you should get rated for, but they start running you through studies just to check things off the box. And the common one is sleep apnea. Like, we're getting people diagnosed for sleep apnea. It's pretty easy to do. These days, almost everybody's got it. But that's just going to increase the costs on insurance later on. Or sometimes when it's, some of the mental struggles that we're always encouraged to go looked at, and get those things looked at if you really need it. But maybe sometimes we're over encouraged some of these things. So if you need it, maybe before you put it on your medical records. I'm not saying don't get care, of course, but it's relevant.
So Scott, that's an interesting question, right? I mean, let's say you're an individual who's come out, has pursued their VA disability, and let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, you're 100% disabled, right? You've got constant ringing in your ears, right? You aches and pains, and you can't bend, or whatever that they looked at. You're 100% disabled, and so then when you step into your world, right, finding these modern options, are you insurable or are you not insurable?
No, that's also a common misconception. Again, talking about averages, the life insurance industry. So think about it this way: government insurance. We've been paying, probably paid for SGLI most of your career, right? Yeah. Did you pay for that? You got $400. Now it's $500,000. Pay like $30 a month, something like that. Seems super cheap.
Yeah.
But then why is the 50-year-old 06 paying the same price as the 18-year-old private? Like, that's not how insurance works, right? That's how group insurance works. Everybody pays the same price. That way they don't have to do medical evaluations. And that's the idea, just to guarantee it. But they have to basically subsidize all the costs, or the younger people are subsidizing older people, or so on. So, and so so that way there's no health rating. Now, on the private marketplace, of course, they want to look at your medical records and know your driving record and know if you're an active skydiver, that kind of thing. They ask if you do rodeo, they want to know if you live a dangerous lifestyle. And,
what's your day
so, you see 100% disabled. The assumption is I am not going to qualify for anything. That's not at all true whatsoever, because I'm sorry, but if you've gotten off base and walked around the average American population these days, we're not doing so hot on the health standard, So the insurance companies are looking for, they do consider you healthy coming out of the military. Obviously, you've got specific medical issues, but aches and pains aren't going to be a struggle. And even if you're on medications, if you've got depression, TBI, none of those are a hard no at all. And oftentimes you can still get, some of the better ratings. Yeah. So it's just a matter of checking, that's the only way to actually find out is to,
that's a good discussion. That's good to know that, right? That's good to know that. So, all right.
Well, cool, man. Well,
Holy cow. We burned through some time pretty effectively, Scott. We're already at 40 minutes, man. And
Well, I think obviously there's a lot to talk about
yeah,
on these, timeline issues. And, we, let us know, where you're at. If you got questions on your process, where you're at in your timeline, happy to chat. I know Mike and I are both open to have, Scott, I'm always available. Just jump on a, quick call if you got a question if you're thinking about any aspect of this stuff. Like we said, we've just had so many conversations with people. We've probably seen a situation similar to yours before. Not that we like to say, like I like to say, I don't give advice. That's why I don't call myself a financial advisor. It's like, no, it's your money. You do whatever the heck you want with it. What I am is I got access to things and resources and particular knowledge. And I know that's what you're bringing to the table too, Mike. So we want to be a resource, realizing that the timing of things is what causes the stress, but it doesn't necessarily have to. We can knock some of these things off the table, get things in the right order, and we can
lead turning it by some period of time is almost always a good thing. And I know we said it earlier in the discussion, but I'll say it again for the members out there that think you're going to have more time towards the end, right, of your time in uniform. That is typically not the normal experience, right? Members that have stepped into career progression, myself included, Steve Weeman, Dave, yourself, Scott, right? You have so many competing interests that in most cases, not all, but in most cases, people find themselves with less time available to devote to the things that they want to do because I have to do these other things, right? Yeah. And there is an anxiety that comes out of that, right? That frustration, right? Oh my gosh, I'm now short of time to do things that need to get done, right? So think about it. So that especially if you're a motivator to start early, right?
Yeah. No, I was gonna say I went to a retirement ceremony the other day, and I was like, well, if you got to plan your own retirement ceremony, that's gonna take a lot of time right at the end, right? That alone.
Well, and for a lot of our members, right? I mean, these guys are like 2 days prior and they go, yeah, I guess I better write a speech, right? I mean, so, they haven't even given that any thought, right? There's just so many competing interests, right? Getting out of uniform, as you remember, right? You're leaving some command, some place, lots of paperwork to do, checkouts with everybody, right? Up and down the chain, right? All of that kind of stuff. So
that's something we can discuss in our networking group. It's as we're talking about skill development, we can practice writing by doing speech writing with ChatGPT.
You could do that. Yes. That technology would probably write you an entertaining one. That's for sure. Right. So,
well, you'd be surprised how, it's just an editor. So if you wrote something and sent it to an editor, or you had a speechwriter anyways, what's the difference?
I received an interesting note on LinkedIn this morning from a Blue Water member sharing me an article from Wall Street Journal. And the gist of the article was that companies, industries are out there and they are expending the technology to utilize that technology to detect use of that technology. You with me? So if you hand in a resume or a CV or something that is representing you, they can tell whether or not it was, if you've used AI, right, to generate that. And I'm interested in that tech. I'm not sure how it does that, but all with the intent of raising it to a higher level of consciousness, now to look harder at it, right? Because there are individuals you can imagine that may lean towards falsehoods or misrepresenting themselves, right? Based on, what the tech is going to come out and say about them. And we always encourage our members, and I still encourage our members to embrace this technology. It's powerful technology, right? And help you align with what it is you're pursuing. But for everybody listening out there, you've got to read what comes back to you. Is this still true? Is this still who you are, right? You with me on that? The tech, needs to represent you, who you are. It may do it in different choice of words or different means, and that's okay, as long as you're not misrepresenting, right, yourself for a reader, right?
Yeah, it's simply just word processing. I mean, people used to write resumes handwritten, in cursive probably, and then they went to the typewriter and then the word processor. So as long as you're using it as a word processor, talk about timeline and saving your time. Like, I think the tips for using ChatGPT and not letting it go off the rails is to use give it only your own ideas. Don't ask it for new embellishments in your own content. Like if you're writing original creative content, you can have it give you ideas and then you can expound on those ideas. But if you're working on something that is your creation or about your life, like a resume, it's really just about formatting and talk to it like a consultant.
Absolutely.
Like ask it questions. Be like, hey, is there anything? I'm looking at this job. What do you think? Am I matching my things right? Like you can use it as a kind of consultant.
Absolutely.
As much as an editor versus writing for you, if that makes sense.
It can be really helpful in that regard. It can also be helpful in comparing and contrasting your resume with a position description. How compatible am I?
What other types of jobs should I be looking for?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, recently we've had individuals, a little bit leave forced concentration areas out into rural America, right? And you can go to ChatGPT, say you're going to move to Lexington, Kentucky, right? You can go to Chat, hey, Lexington, Kentucky. Or we had an individual go to Morgantown, West Virginia. What are the top 5 industries represented in Morgantown, West Virginia? Who are the major hires in this area, right? What industries are represented? Are there defense industries or government contractors in Morgantown, West Virginia, right? You can ask it, like you said, treat it like a consultant, ask it these questions. You would be surprised at the quality of insight that you get back for a response from that. It's going to very quickly open your eyes up to like, wow, I had no idea that, Booz Allen Hamilton had an office in Morgantown, West Virginia. I had no idea. Wow. Come to find out that they do, right? Just as an example, right? So, I'm a fan of the tech, but to your point, right? You got to use it wisely, right?
Right. So yet another thing to learn. It's hard to say where this is really going. This is, from what I'm seeing is all this grandiose stuff about what AI is going to change the world. A lot of people think that it's just another kind of online gimmick. It's kind of like the tech bubble in the .com era. Like it's kind of whiz bangy. Obviously, it's very cool what it can do, but well, anyways, we'll see. I guess what I'm getting at is like, I don't think you need to quite go become an AI coder yet, or add that to your skill set. Now that said, someone's going to be doing it. So if you're the only guy at the company and they're like, hey, I think we need to get into this AI thing, and you're like, hey, I've been dabbling in that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a way to get your foot in the door. But awesome, Mike. Well,
good discussion, sir.
Wrap it up for today, and yes, sir. All right, next week we will not be online because
now you're going to be up in Annapolis. Yeah, the Naval Academy Alumni Association. We're hosting a cohort up there, and we're excited to do that. Scott's going to join us for the social, right? Day 1 and today, and then for day 2, some one-on-one discussions for the members that are up there interested in having conversations with you about these topics, Scott. So we appreciate you making the time to come up, and we'll take good care of you. And should be a good time. Good time.
I love going to my rivals alumni center and telling people,
hey, we just got to get the Army on board now. Come on, we got to do it.
No. We definitely want to go up to West Point too, but no, I'm looking forward to it. And cool. We will talk to everybody then later this month.
Sounds good. All right.
Be
well. See ya.
Take care.